Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those on this side of the world. Regards from Buenos Aires. I hope the start of your week has been a great one, a pleasant one. My name is Krisa Tsuraki. For those that don't know me yet, CEO at INVR. Today is a great honor and a big pleasure to welcome you on a topic that we have received many inbounds. There is a lot of interest right now in a spotlight on Uruguay because there have been some important news out there, and we have been listening to you. So we had this incredible idea. Our marketing team has this incredible idea to invite a very good friend from the president of ANCAP, Alejandro Stepanicic, to be here with us today, showcase what is currently happening in Uruguay, because it is remarkable. And we're going to navigate through this ambitious renewables integration, but very realistic, on the other hand, in the country's energy mix. So let me, before I introduce Alejandro, give you to those that are a bit agnostic, if you are, in regards to Uruguay. Uruguay is a relatively small country. I say relatively because I'm from Greece. Greece is even smaller than Uruguay. So, but we're talking about one of the smallest countries in Latin America. It's located between Argentina and Brazil, so two huge markets that we have introduced in the past and that we're working with. However, I would say whenever people ask, which country do you believe that is actually leading this energy transition, innovation, I always talk about Uruguay, and there's a very important reason why. ANCAP is the national ex-oil, but currently still oil plus energy company. So it's a state-owned company that has been leading this energy transition for Uruguay. And Alejandro has been steering the wheel for quite a few years now. He has experience in the private sector. We have discussed about it. We have shared stories. But now he is the person with his team behind this incredible change within the country. So Alejandro, thank you so much for joining today. Hello from the other side of the river. I hope that you're doing well. You're prepared for this.
Thank you very much, Krisa. It is a great pleasure and honor to represent ANCAP today and to be here with all of you. Thank you for those who are attending this webinar. Today, we are going to talk about ANCAP and Uruguay from a different point of view than the traditional of the small national oil company we are, because our first and principal mission here in Uruguay is to supply the fossil fuels needed to move the country. We have a legal monopoly here, so we are to supply 100% of all the demand in the country. That is in our back, and we have to comply with that mission. But being able to fulfill the mission in the present also means to think about the future. So today we are going to chat for a while about how we see the future. And next slide, please. I will divide this presentation in three perspectives. It's a short presentation, but I would like to tell you how we understand the present and the future perspectives. Keep in mind that, again, we are a legal monopoly. We are to supply 100% of the demand of the energy, the fuels required in the country. But this is for now and also for the future. We feel the responsibility to be ahead in the progress, in the evolution of the energy market. So we have to be very prepared about that. Next slide shows how the BP energy outlook looks the long-term view. BP abandoned the idea of several scenarios. They are very realistic, and they say, well, we'll forecast only two scenarios. The current trajectory, they say, I may say, the do nothing case or business as usual case, and the net zero, the desired, the aspirational scenario for 2050. In both scenarios, the do nothing case and the net zero scenario, BP projects an important and relevant demand of oil, natural gas, and also coal in the future. The main difference between the do nothing case and the net zero scenario are basically two. First of all, a huge reduction in the energy demand, led by probably what they feel is energy efficiency. But they see for the net zero scenario that there must be a reduction in the demand of energy, which is thinkable but not easy to achieve. And a lot of introduction of renewables. In the next slide, we can see how the market see the energy companies. And this is from Standard and Poor's. I updated this graph minutes ago, so I wanted to have the last minute data. And what we see is that the blue line represents the global clean energy index, which is the measurement of the performance and expectations of the market of about 100 clean energy companies in the world. And the white line represents the 120 biggest companies, oil companies in the world. And what we've seen is that in the last few years, clean companies had a lot of promotion, had a lot of good image, and their stocks went up. But in the recent years, the expectations are much more aligned with the energy sector. So what we are seeing now is that clean energy companies had a lower performance or have lower expectation for the future, and the traditional oil companies are going up. I made the exercise to analyze this same data for American oil companies, and the performance is amazing. It's much more higher. It's higher than the clean energy companies and also the global oil index. So American companies who are buying other companies in the world these days have an outlined performance in the market. That means market expects a lot from them, but they are all involved in renewables. So the leading of the energy sector in the next few years, it'll be seen dominated by the oil companies doing the efforts to multiply their offer of products in the energy market. In the next slide, we can see several uncertainties about the green hydrogen. And we have to stop here because hydrogen, green hydrogen in particular, hydrogen in general, but green hydrogen in particular, had a lot of, press, a lot of marketing about green hydrogen. There is a lot of good things said about green hydrogen, and indeed, it is a sectorial vector, the sectorial articulator in the future. Hydrogen will link several separated words and worlds in the energy sector, which is the articulation of the water sector, the electricity sector, the molecule sector, meaning energy, fuels, petrochemicals, chemicals, medicine sector, and in a whole, the hydrogen will unite separated worlds. But in the scenario of long term, there will be no doubt about the presence and the relevance of hydrogen. But how long it will take us to get that scenario? it is a long way, probably decades. And in between, we have to supply the hydrogen, the green hydrogen from the source to the demand. And the supply chain is not yet developed. There are a lot of uncertainties on what green hydrogen really means, because it's easy in a speech to talk about green hydrogen, but when you go to the papers, when you go to the law, when you go to regulations, certificates, or any regulation, you have to be more specific about what green hydrogen is. The preferred carriers are not chosen yet, and I've been to Rotterdam last month, and the UE is discussing which carriers are the best to bring green hydrogen into the market in Europe. And they have really a lot of problems because they are not so pragmatic as the Americans, and Europeans are very strict, and probably those strict rules they are imposing may not properly promote the introduction of renewable. Probably they will stop somehow the evolution of renewables. There's a big, big fight between green hydrogen for power generation or for molecules. Um, some people get mad at me when I say that 17 over 100 Teslas in Europe run on coal. The Tesla is fantastic. EVs are fantastic, are somehow spaceships. They are very technological, very modern. I love them. But 17 over 100 Teslas in Europe run on coal. So if we are to decarbonize the economy, decarbonize the market, the energy market, we first should attend the problems of power generation. And there is a lot of difficulties of finding renewable sources. And there are not enough and good and reliable locations to produce hydrogen or renewables. And BP expects that from the current trajectory, from 2035, it means 10 years from now, up to 2050, the supply of hydrogen should be multiplied by 20 times. So is this an opportunity for Uruguay? Well, I can answer in the last item I mentioned. There are not enough good and reliable locations in the world to produce a green hydrogen. I don't care if the world reaches or not. Well, I do care. I mean, for the matter of I'm speaking, I don't care if we reach this 20 times increase in production of hydrogen or not. What I think, what I expect, what I assume that best locations are going to be touched first to reach this increase in 20 times. So Uruguay is one of those great locations, and that's why there is an opportunity for Uruguay talking about hydrogen and renewables in general. In the next slide, I will try to explain to you why Uruguay is that such a spot. And initially, we have to say that we are a reliable country. We are a reliable country. The hydrocarbons law in rule today, that law allow us to have 7 oil contracts offshore. And the same rule applied in the 2009 and 2012 bidding rounds for offshore oil and gas exploration. And they are in vigor from 1974. The forestry law that was signed in 1987 allows today have a huge forestry sector in Uruguay with three pulp mills, two of the greatest in the world. And those pulp mills produce a lot of forestry residues that are used to produce biogenic CO2. We are plenty of biogenic CO2, and that's a law from 1987. The investment production promotion regime is stayed in 1988. The electric sector regulation declared in 1998 permits that today Uruguay is a country where power generation is almost 100% always renewable from renewable sources. The biofuels law, instead in 2008, uh, uh, put the first step in the molecules, renewable molecules, refundation of our sector, and we are introducing biofuels in our common fossil fuels and traditional fossil fuels from that time. And 2 years ago, the law stated that ANCAP has legal authorization for participating in the green hydrogen and derivatives sector, which is the political sector in Uruguay is very convinced on this national policy on energy and renewable energy and the promotion of on the foreign direct investment in the country. The next slide shows the other side of why Uruguay. And for many of you, this may be very known. We have similarities. Um, recently decided about 100 million years ago. Uh, the geology stated that we have the same geology than Namibia. And from Pangea to now, we have an opportunity, and then Namibia discovers leverage Uruguay. So, in the traditional business, in the oil and gas sector, Uruguay has a huge potential. We identified almost 40 prospects, and we studied them, and we have a lot of measurements about the potential of our country in that. And international companies are here to present, to explore, and to assess those potentialities. In the next slide, we can see the same, but from the renewables part of the scenario. We have good wind. We may not have the wind of the Patagonia. We may not have the solar potential of the Atacama Desert in Chile, but we do really have a very good combination of both. So for renewable power, Uruguay is second to a few in the world. And we also have cows that produce tallow. And we also are in a very dense market among Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, uh, to recollect used cooked oil. And we do have canola and pongamia and carinata. We do have a lot of forestry, as I've mentioned before, which is a good source of biogenic CO2. So we have a great potential in green hydrogen. We have vegetable oils. We have tallow. We have CO2 from biogenic sources. So we are in a better position, the best position, I mean, uh, to produce synthetic fuels and also biofuels, generation of biofuels. What are we doing? I can show you in the next slides. We are trying to develop one strategy and several initiatives, and those are based in these pillars. And when we talk about the pillars of a national strategy, believe me, it is how we think and how we understand the present and the future. When we talk about responsible transition, we mean, first of all, we have to secure the supply of energy. Um, in Europe, for several times, the discussion was reliable energy is done, is set, is for sure. So the discussion was should energy should be more achievable, more uh, uh, equally accessible for all, or it has to be sustainable. The fight was mainly between price and sustainability, price and greener, up to Ukraine happened. And European market found that energy was not secured. Energy was not to be supplied but for sure. First of all, we have to have energy. Then we may discuss if it is cheaper or more expensive, if it is greener or more traditional, more fossil based. And as we talked several times in these kinds of events and with Chris and his crew several times, transition is a small word, it's a unique word, but means very different things, very different concepts for Latin Americans, for Europeans, for Americans, or for African people. There are 1,000 million people in the world that has no access to energy. And as an African representative last year said in London, and I remember it was a shock for me, she was very, very keen and very precise when she said it is very good to speak about green air, but not from the darkness. I mean, we should transition in a responsible way, and that is our first pillar in Uruguay. We have to secure the supply of energy. We do have to be neutral in the technology. We are agnostics in technology. The convenience should drive any initiative of introducing new sources of energy or new products. I mean, if they can compete, they can complement, and if you have a better offer, put it in place, and it will gain its space. It's not a matter of one against other, it's one plus others. That is the concept of addition, not substitution. Our country is a very small country, so a small local market for large projects. So we in Uruguay, we are 100% oriented for huge export projects. We based our generation more than 98% in renewable sources. So we are ready to deliver green electricity for new projects, for additional projects. It is not a competition between our local power market to export projects. No. Our local power market is 100% green. So in addition, new projects are going to be greener by definition. We are a country that promotes the foreign direct investment. So we are keen to investors, so to private investors to come to Uruguay. And what is the most important and the most valuable thing we have in Uruguay, we are a long-term prestige. We have a long-term tracking of serious professional proposals and behavior. We are not to show you what we will be. We have to show you what we are and how we reacted for the last 30, 40, or 50 years, in which several laws were passed, several bills were passed by the parliament, supported by part of all the parties, but always sustained by all the parties in government. There is a national policy on that. Saying this thing, which is very ambitious and in the upper level of discussion, going to the earth, putting our feet in the earth. The strategy of ANCAP, it is in the next slide, is based on several lines of action, 7 lines of action. First of all, to reduce current emissions. Okay, our current operations and happen to be traditional operations in the upstream, hopefully in the near future. They have to be based and they have to be oriented, focused on the reduction of emissions. Doing the things well means to do better what we are doing today. So it's not a matter to substitute gasoline by e-gasoline or methanol. It is to decarbonize the economy, which means everything that is needed today and in the future must be reduced in carbon emissions. So if we are to need to require gasoline and diesel and fossil fuels for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 decades, we must do the effort to reduce the emissions of the fossil fuels. And that is one of our lines of action. We are establishing a program of bidding rounds to produce green hydrogen at world scale offshore. A very innovative, a very new thing that is based in our experience in the production sharing agreements in the oil and gas sector. We are also promoting projects, and they are in place for projects to produce e-fuels from biogenic CO2 sources. We also have a very good position in the region to produce feedstock for the biofuels and to produce hydrogenated vegetable oils and sustainable aviation fuels to be a regional hub, and we are dealing with those. We are studying our saline aquifers as a potential source of storage for CO2 and capture and store of CO2. We are also doing the assessment of white hydrogen potential in our geology. And we are also working with a European university to introduce a first-of-a-kind solution to produce SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, from ethanol. In the next slide, we have mentioned 4 initiatives that are already ongoing to produce e-methanol and e-gasoline in a biogenic capture facility in the north part of the country. This is led by our subsidiary Allure, and the project is from HIF Global, a very innovative company in the world, leading the production of e-fuels, and they have a project in Hariboni, which is a pilot project that is producing e-gasoline. They have a project in Tasmania. They have a project in Matagorda, Texas. And our project in Uruguay is the first of those projects to be online in an industrial and commercial scale. We also have signed an MOU with Enertrack, the German company, which already has a project in Uruguay to produce methanol, to evaluate the feasibility of a second e-methanol project for them and for ANCAP, capturing the CO2 from the sugarcane production and destination for ethanol. We decided to go on with a pre-treatment plan for vegetable oil, tallow, and UCO to provide feedstock for HVO and SAF production. And we also decided to go on with a vegetable oils hydrotreating plant at our refinery La Teja to be fed by this feedstock from Allure and to produce vegetable oils. But in the next slide, you'll see that we also are very dynamic and very active in calling for expressions of interest. In this second project, this last project, the Partnership for HVO SAF Production, we already have a project. We are calling for those who want to partner with the ANCAP group and Allure to produce a higher scale of HBO or SAF for the region. And we do have a call for expressions of interest to create a logistic hub at our crude terminal in the east part of the country, in Terminal del Este. We have a crude terminal in the most appreciated site of beaches and suns and tourism in Latin America, in Punta del Este. And that crude terminal, which is a very, very qualified operation, has plenty of space, and offering that site for a higher logistic hub to manage fossil fuels or renewable fuels. So for those methanol projects in Uruguay, for those hydrogen projects, for ammonia projects, for urea projects, you will need a logistic. And we are putting on the table our sites to to enhance the possibility of capex in huge projects heading toward the region and looking at the region as a whole, And we are going to launch a program of bidding rounds for offshore green hydrogen production. Each of the round, can you explain later? But each round is based on a long-term exploration and evaluation and assessment time. After that, when the world decides the carriers, the world decides which are the requirements for green certifications, and they agreed on how we manage green hydrogen production. Well, Uruguay will be ready to deliver, will be ready to be one of the hottest spots in the renewables market in the future. In the next slide, you'll see that our projects are oriented on what BP identifies are the most required projects for the transition. And the air transportation will be transformed into hydrogen-derived fuels and biofuels in the future. The maritime transportation also, and they will also require low-carbon natural gas, which is one of our initiatives. So whatever the future is, and whatever the amount of the size of a market to be developed in renewables, all ANCAP's initiatives are focused on that future. And we are offering a second-to-none place in the world to fulfill that. The last slide I have to show you is our global vision of how a perfect low-carbon portfolio can be set and can be offered. We have our 7 oil and gas blocks under oil contracts with huge companies. We are launching a bidding round, several bidding rounds for our 4. We identified 20 offshore blocks with huge potential for producing hydrogen. We are only to offer 4 at the first time, and they are for free this time. Probably they won't be for free in later bidding rounds. But we have ethanol projects, we have biodiesel, biosaf, green diesel, methanol projects. So we are trying to put in the table several initiatives. We promote private operators to come to Uruguay, to invest in Uruguay, to develop our potentials, and we think we're really satisfied on how the world is answering our request. Well, Krisa, this is what I have to show you. I am open to questions.
Perfect. First, I want to see with the team whether we have any questions from the audience. I do have 2, to be honest. Um, Team, if you can drop any questions here in the chat in the meantime. Okay, perfect. So, Alejandro, this is what we're talking in the background, that we're talking about the traditional, let's say, national oil and gas company that is now moving fast forward into the renewables stage with very, very innovative approaches. I want to understand from your end a bit more about the bidding round, right? I would love to hear more about how did you come up with it? What is your vision? Without shying away from hydrocarbons, how are you going to expedite this green energy transition?
Chris, I had some difficulties on hearing you.
Right. I can repeat. I don't know if the audience heard me, but Alejandro, can you hear me now? I know we had this like very small delay issue in the background. Can you hear me now?
I think that is normalized now. Please, can you repeat it again? Sorry, Chris,
Yes.
I didn't hear you.
Yes, of course. So I wanted to ask you, how is ANCAP? ANCAP is a national oil company. You're not shying away from hydrocarbons, right? You're not removing hydrocarbons from your energy metrics. Meanwhile, you are expediting in the most innovative way towards very, very enhanced and full force on green energy, right? On this not just transition, but full on green energy. What is the vision? And can you give us some more details regarding the bidding round? Was that clear?
I
Or
think you are asking for the hydrogen bidding round, Lisa?
exactly, I'm asking regard exactly the hydrogen bidding round.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? You can now.
Yeah. Uh, uh, as, as I mentioned before, Krisa, the world is talking about green hydrogen a lot, very, very much about green hydrogen. There are a lot of expectatives. The expectation is very high in the world about green hydrogen, but it is not yet decided how to transport and how to supply that hydrogen. But the goals set in the world are very ambitious, and the amount of increase in the production of hydrogen sets the world a huge challenge to be complied. And knowing that we have a very good place where to produce large amounts of green hydrogens, we offered the government to set up a set of bidding rounds to offer our blocks in the offshore to produce to install wind farms and photovoltaic farms in the ocean, and there not needed to be connected to the land or to the onshore, and there to produce ammonia or liquid hydrogen or the carrier that is to be decided in the world, and to transport to Europe or to the States or to Asia. We realize that the world is not prepared, but the world is urged to have solutions. So what we are offering is a block, 500 square kilometers block in the ocean with depth less than 60 meters, winds, waves, and tides similar or better than in the North Sea. So you can use the existing technology to produce electricity, to produce hydrogen in electrolyzers already developed in the world, and there to ship for export. 200,000 tons of hydrogen is the minimum we estimated for each one of the blocks. And you have 10 years to develop a project. You present your offer today, you are assigned a block. Your only obligation is to comply with your working plan. You are to comply what the goals and the objectives of your working plan established
Which
in the
is not
offer.
it's not
You
very
put an offer.
different from sorry, it's not very different from what the oil and gas companies know from their PSAs, right? Like you're not using a model that's very unknown, very new to them.
Exactly. And the first to be interested in our bidding rounds were the oil and gas companies. Existing operations in the area, managers of existing operations were caught in their attention by this bidding round and said, okay, this is very common for us and this is very, very reliable and comfortable for us. And that is how we see the future. I mean, energy sector requires large amounts of investment and very long term. It's not a matter of doing something, a small thing for tomorrow. It's great things for the 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And that is the proposal we are putting into the table. We will be offering 4 blocks, and in each block you can, when you are ready and the world is ready, you can produce 200 or 300,000 tons of hydrogen per year, which are really, really huge amounts of hydrogen for being offered to the market. And there is no need for you to invest in a higher risk than to evaluate and to assess how the market is developing itself. We are very, very aware of the expectations of the hydrogen sector, but also the immaturity of the hydrogen sector in the world. There's a lot of words, there are a lot of studies, there are a lot of initiatives ongoing, but the world is not really decided on how to handle the hydrogen. But if we are going to go to that direction, if we are going to introduce hydrogen as a main vector in the energy sector, we should be prepared. And Uruguay is offering the platform to be prepared for that in the near future.
It is indeed very innovative, and I really liked there were. I think you guys are running very fast. I want to say that because we work with many governments, and I see every time we meet with ANCAP, like at least once a year, you are ahead of the game, and that's very, very important. I see 2 questions from the audience. Hola, Santi. So first of all, can you elaborate a bit more on ANCAP's plans regarding natural hydrogen exploration? I know this comes from your team, and I think that probably they want you to elaborate a bit more because they're doing an excellent job at promoting what you're currently working on. So can you share some more details, please?
Natural gas is the derivative of oil and gas assessments, and we are working with European regional universities in the region to assess our potential, because we have good conditions and we have geological structures enabling the possibility of having white hydrogen in our country. We are going to offer similar procedures and similar terms and requirements for presenting offers to do exploration of white hydrogen in the future. probably next year in the first semesters, uh, ANCAP will launch several of bidding rounds for offering blocks onshore to explore the possibility of white hydrogen in our geology, um, based always in our geology knowledge in our experience with all companies, and knowing that uh, all these efforts are very expensive and they take time to develop. So we
Mhm.
will put the same model, the business model for the oil and gas, for the hydrogen offshore, to evaluate the potential of natural hydrogen in our basins. In that case, in Uruguay, it will be ANCAP, the focal point of that. And in that case, the law establishes that ANCAP is the one to regulate in the name of the state all the issues about natural gases, hydrogen, natural hydrogen. So the next year we will be doing some bidding rounds on that also.
Perfect. And in terms of, Matthias is asking, now that we're talking about bidding rounds, what about the offshore wind round? Now that you have the approval from the government, when should we expect it for it to take place?
We will establish a schedule for 4 bidding rounds. Our plan is to launch a set of bidding rounds from the beginning. The first will be taking place between January and February next year. There is a pre-qualification uh, quick process before, then the presentation of offers, and we will do it for 4 dates from January, probably January, February, April, May, July, August, and September, October, November next year. The idea is to establish 4 dates to present offers, and with these conditions. It may happen that in the first date in January, we will be run out of blocks, and we assign all 4 blocks to bidders. It may happen that at the end of the fourth date, we have no companies interested in our blocks. In any way, we will be revisiting our strategy and to make more blocks to be offered in the future, or to change some requirements in the case that the market requires modifications. This is an evolving market. This is a market that has not yet set all the rules. So we have to be very dynamic and very adaptive of what the market requires. And our first step is to offer 4 blocks in 4 instances next year, beginning in January.
Phenomenal. And one last question from Mema Hanani. What are the key technical or regulatory challenges ANCAP has faced in integrating new renewables into Uruguay's grid? And how is the company overcoming them to ensure both energy stability and sustainability? As you can see, we have like a large international audience that is getting inspired by what Uruguay is actually working on today. So, how would you describe these challenges? They're both like regulatory and technical. Maybe the
Chris,
high.
as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the pillars in our strategy is that I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't hear.
No, no worries. I said both technical, right, and regulatory. So regulatory, I think you've touched upon a lot. What about maybe technical?
Chris, as I mentioned before, we are focused on exports. local market does not interfere with our initiatives, and local regulations are only required for producing renewables, producing hydrogen, producing power, producing e-methanol. But there are no restrictions, or there are no requirements, special requirements in the local market. We are to deliver what the international market may accept. So the grid in Uruguay is almost renewable, 100% renewable. So we don't need an expansion of the grids. And from the size of the market point of view, Uruguay only has 2.4 gigawatts as a peak demand, historical peak demand. So each one of the projects that are being evaluated or in the engineering stage, as in the Paysandu project, they are greater or at least similar to the size of our grid. So it is not a matter of interaction with the grid or with our local market. They are brand new projects isolated from the local market issues and regulations. The stability of the grid is going to be set from Argentina, our interconnection for our grid to Argentina. There is a much greater grid in Argentina than Uruguay. So the stability of the grid is set offshore the country. And each one of the ongoing initiatives are the similar size of a country, so there is no interference with local regulations or requirements, technical requirements. Our projects are designed to be exporting units, and kind of isolated projects, each one from the local market.
Completely perfect. Alejandro, I want to summarize a couple of points. Thank you, first of all, very much for your time. I know we didn't have time to debate about the dulce de leche, but I know you guys, and I'm sorry, Argentinians, you win on the asado and the quality of the beef. But in all seriousness, Uruguay, besides being a fantastic destination for investment in general, it's remarkable, and an energy investment. It's remarkable how ANCAP is really leading, is really ahead of the game and ahead of this energy transition. I think you guys make an exceptional case study for other markets, countries, and national energy companies to follow. You're flexible. You are very open-minded. You receive a lot of feedback from the companies and your partners. You take them very, very seriously, from my experience, and very forward-thinking. So I want to again thank you so much for your time, and this has been very, very popular demand to have this conversation today. You will be joining us mid-October in London for the GEW, like you did last year. And I want to encourage anyone that has any questions. Your team is always open. Your team is always available to answer them. And I would say that we should repeat this in maybe like after the bid round starts, so we can see if there are any updates, any thoughts, anything else we can talk about. What do you think? And I hope you heard me.
Thank you very much, Krisa. Our team is at your disposal, and all those who are interested in doing things with Uruguay and interested in our plans. I am very proud of my team and the long-term tracking of ANCAP in this kind of initiative. So we are proud, we are confident, and we are at your disposal, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Alejandra. Muchas gracias.